Hey folks, this is part 2 of this little observer's book of automobiles. So in part 1 I talked a bit about this observer's book series and sort of how I came about having this, and so go back to that video to get those details and that information. But as a quick recap, this is the Observer's Book of Automobiles for 1959, which is this is the 5th edition of this series, which started in 1955. And so we left off with the Gill. These different car makes are in alphabetical order, and we did up to Gill. And Gill is another British car maker. This was not a car imported to the U.S., I don't believe. I'm pretty sure. And the current model in 1959 was a get-about saloon car. And this is it here. The 2-cylinder, 322cc engine with 15 horsepower. Kind of a funky looking little dude. Out of London, England. And here's GogoMobile, Germany. Their current models were the Regent T300 saloon and convertible, the Regent T400 saloon and convertible, the Mayfair TS300 coupe and convertible, and the Mayfair TS400 coupe and convertible, as well as the Royal T700. Quite a few different models from the GogoMobile. the GogoMobile car company. Here's Hansa, Germany. Current model, the 1100 in saloon, sunroof, deluxe, saloon, coupe, and station wagon. And here's the Hansa 1100 saloon. It's a 1100cc engine with 40 horsepower. And here's the coupe. And the fins, like the American style, have actually been carried over into this German Hansa. And there's the Hansa station wagon. Here's another British car, the Hillman. The Hillman Motor Car Company was established in 1907 by William Hillman, a famous British motorist of that time, who, in collaboration with Louis Coquelin, produced a car for participation in the TT race of that year. And here's the Hillman Minx Series 3 Deluxe Saloon. Here's a Minx Series 3 convertible and an estate car. To a large degree, in this time period, you could sort of say the station wagon was the minivan of that era. Minivan hadn't been introduced yet. Here's an Australian car make, the Holden in Australia. It's a General Motors division. Current models, the standard, business, special sedans, standard, special, station sedans. So there's the special sedan. Kind of reminds me of just a miniaturized mid-50s Chevrolet, doesn't it? And there's the Holden Special Station Sedan. There's another British car, the Humber, one of the oldest companies in the British motor industry. Like several other early ones, Humbers began by making bicycles, having been established for that purpose in 1867 by Thomas Humber out of Coventry, England. They have quite a few models. Humber Hawk Saloon, Humber Hawk Estate Car, and here's the Humber Super Snipe Saloon. 6-cylinder, 2.7 liter, 112 horsepower. And here's another American, the Imperial, a division of Chrysler Corporation. That's a huge car. They have a Custom, a Crown, and a LeBaron. Here's the Imperial Custom, 2-door Southampton hardtop. I mean, that is one huge car for a 2-door. And you can see that very wide look. It has those fins we talked about in the beginning of the first part 1 of this, with this book, where in 1959 the fins were, on American cars in particular, were really extreme and kind of reached their zenith. So here's the Isetta in Germany. This is a division of BMW, Bearish Mortar and Work. Current models are the 300 and the 600. It's a 2-cylinder, 500. This is the Isetta, BMW Isetta 600 Saloon. Number of cylinders 2. It's a 2-cylinder, 585 cc, and 19.5 horsepower. Now, it may not be obvious in this picture, but the door, this front face, is actually the door. And you get in and out by popping that opens up, it swings open. And you get in and out through that front area. And it's one of those vehicles, it's a little hard to tell the front if it's coming or going. But I have seen these driving around, and they hold 2 people. And I don't know if they were imported to the U.S., but I certainly have seen these cars in the U.S., so they got here one way or another. I don't know if they were sold at dealerships here or not. And here's Jaguar, Great Britain, Coventry, England. The Jaguar concern began in a very modest way as a small coach building shop in Blackpool, where sidecars for motorcycles were made. That was in 1923, and 5 years later the proprietor, William Lyons, who had also been making special swallow bodies for Austin Sevens, moved his firm to Coventry, where by 1931, as the Swallow Sidecar and Coach Building Company, they were building bodies on standard car chassis. So, in 1959, they had a 2.4 liter saloon, a 3.4 liter saloon, a Mark 8 saloon, and a Mark 9 saloon, as well as the XK 150 Roadster, drop head coupe, fixed head coupe. So this predates the XKE. And here's the four-door Jag. 6-cylinder, 2.5 liter, or they also had a 3.5 liter as noted, 3.4 liter, either 112 for the smaller engine or 210 horsepower. These cars are obviously quite popular in restorations. This car is the Mark 8 and 9. I don't know which one it is. Maybe they look the same. And here's that Roadster. This is the classic XK style Roadster. This is getting a little dated by this time. Still a pretty cool car. That's got a 3.4 liter with 190 horsepower, or could be souped up to 250 in the S-type model. And here's the XK with the hardtop, or what they call the fixed head coupe. It's another British car maker, Jensen of Great Britain. Here's the Jensen Deluxe, 541 Deluxe. I don't think this era of Jensen cars was imported into the U.S. There's a Series R 541 saloon. The Austin engine, 4 liter. Says it'll go 125 plus miles per hour. There's an Italian car, a Lancia, Italy. It's an Appia 2nd Series Farina Coupe. It's a V4. Looks like 1100cc V4 with 53 horsepower. Here's the Aurelia Gran Turismo 2500 Coupe. And the Aurelia Gran Turismo 2500 Convertible. Lancia Flaminia Berlina. That's got a V6, 2.5 liter V6 with 112 horsepower. Here's another American car, the Lincoln. It's a Lincoln Mercury division of Ford Motor Company. In 1917, Henry Leland founded the Lincoln Company and presented its first model in 1921. This was a car of 90 horsepower and a V8, but the Ford Company bought the new concern in the following year. Ford continued to produce the engine without change until 1932, except in 1928 when an increase of 1/8 inch was made to the bore, during which time it produced 125 horsepower. These Lincolns, to me, of this period are not particularly attractive. But here's the Lincoln Landau 4-door hardtop. It's another huge car. It says curb weight 5,170 pounds. And here's a Lloyd from Germany. This is the Lloyd Alexander TS Saloon, 2-cylinder, 600cc, 25 horsepower. It's interesting when they showed the American cars, they use pounds and inches, and when they show the European cars, they show centimeters, millimeters, and kilograms for weight. Here's a classic British company, Lotus. The extremely successful series of Lotus sports racing cars had its beginnings in 1947 when Colin Chapman built a special based on an ancient Austin 7 saloon, which after suitable tuning took part in races and trials. Marks 2 and 3 followed, also based on Austin 7 components, and at the end of 1951, the Lotus Engineering Company was formed to cope with requests from the many people who are asking for replicas of the successful little Lotus. So, at this time, the Lotus models were the 7, the 7 Super, the 11, the 15, and the Elite. So here's an absolute classic, the Lotus 7 Sports. Those Lotus 7s are quite valuable today. This car had a 4-cylinder Ford motor, 36 horsepower. Only weighed 808 pounds. Not the safest car on the road, that's for sure. Not much between the driver and anything it might impact. And look at this cool one, the Lotus 11 Le Mans 85. There's a car. And then here's a Lotus Elite Gran Turismo Coupe. Beautiful car. So not all the cars of 1959 are, well, I'll just say it, ugly. Some are quite beautiful. Here's a Maico, Germany. The model is the 500 2- and 4-seater cabriolets. And there's the Maico 500 Sport. 2-cylinder, 452cc, 20 horsepower. Now here's another Italian make, the Maserati. The Maserati at that time, 3500T, 200SI, 300S, 450S. Here's a 3500T Gran Turismo Coupe. That's a very cool car. I'm sure one of those today restored is worth a fortune. Here's a Maserati 450S Sports Racing 2-seater. Got a V8, 4.5 liter, 400 horsepower. Says that car would go 186 miles per hour. Probably keep you busy at 180 miles an hour. And here's, of course, a classic, well-known brand, the Mercedes-Benz from Germany, Stuttgart. The models at that time were the 180 and 180 diesel, the 190 SL, that's a roadster or a coupe, and 219, a 220S, 220 SE, and a 300 automatic, as well as a 300 SL. So here's a 190 SL. That would be a 4-cylinder, 115 cubic inch. So interesting that they do that in cubic inch. 120 horsepower. says that car will go between 106 and 112. I don't know why there's a range there, but oops, I missed the page. And here's a sedan. That's a 219, 6-cylinder, 100 horsepower. Look at that beautiful 220S convertible, 6-cylinder, 120 horsepower. They say that car will go 100 miles an hour. And here's a real classic, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. Those are, of course, also quite valuable when restored. Had a 6-cylinder, 182 cubic inch, 250 horsepower. I'd say that car could go 155 miles per hour with the right rear axle ratio. I think I missed another page. Here we go. Alright, another American car maker. The Mercury, a Lincoln Mercury division of Ford Motor Company. I did a whole video on the Mercury a while back. That 49, 50, 51 years of the classic Mercury. Often very customizable, or you'll find those often in customized. Mercury was formed as a subsidiary to the Ford Motor Company in 1939. In that year, the first model with styling not unlike the bodies on the cars of the parent company made its entry into the American market. But though the Ford car was furnished with an engine of 87 horsepower, the Mercury was powered by one which produced 95. So here's the Mercuries of 1959, which, I was not a huge fan of the 59 Mercuries, or this era of Mercury, really. There's the Monterey 2- and 4-door sedans, the Montclair, the Park Lane, and station wagons. And of course, I have more respect for these cars now. There's the Park Lane Cruiser, big car. V8, 430 cubic inch, 345 horsepower. And here's another classic British car, the MG. The MG business began with a specially tuned version of the Morris Oxford in 1923 by Morris Garages. This car had a maximum speed of 82 miles per hour, and it, at its first attempt, won a gold medal in the London to Land's End trial. So at the time the current models were the Series MGA, which is a 2-seater sports coupe, the Series MGA Twin Cam, and the Magnet Series 2, standard in various saloons. So here's the MGA. I'm sure this car will look somewhat familiar. There's a lot of these in the States. The MGA Twin Cam, 2-seater sports car. Here's the MGA Coupe, and there's the MG Magnet Series 2 Veritone Saloon. These cars were sort of, as I think was noted in part 1, when I read the foreword by Sterling Moss, these cars really opened up sports cars style to America. I mean, other parts of the world as well, but they were popular here. You know, fairly affordable little sports cars. Here's another one, the Morgan from Great Britain. The Morgan Company commenced in 1909 when HFS Morgan designed and built his own three-wheeler runabout with simple sliding pillar front wheel suspension. Now there's a new incarnation of that three-wheeled car. Or a three-wheeled car, three-wheeled Morgan. So that's kind of the classic Morgan with that rounded front. So that model is the Morgan Plus 4 two-seater Tourer. Having a hard time with that word today. And here's the Morgan Plus 4 four-seater Tourer. And the Morgan 4 Series 2 two-seater. This car should also be somewhat familiar. There's a fair bit of those around. And here's Morris. And they have the Australian and the Great Britain one. So here's Morris Australia. Their model was the Major and the Marshall, both saloon cars. And here's an example of the Marshall. Six-cylinder, 2.6 liter, 85 horsepower. And here's Morris, Great Britain. This should also be a somewhat familiar name. These were imported, various versions of these were imported into the U.S. William Morris Viscount Nuffield produced his first motor car at Cowley in 1912. Although 10 years earlier he had marketed a motorcycle. World War I frustrated his first attempt to develop an economical passenger car. But after the war, despite the Depression, a new effort was made. This is a classic. The Morris Minor 1000 four-door saloon. These are popular little cars. 948cc, 37 horsepower. And here's a Morris Minor Traveler. Sort of a little, again, a station wagon, or this era's form of a minivan. And here's a Morris Cowley 1500 saloon. Morris Oxford. You know, being a British car and so popular, they show a lot of the different models of the Morris. And here's our first Russian car, the USSR, Moscow USSR. The models were the M407, the M410, and the M432, which is the one model they show is the 407 four-door saloon out of Russia. Photograph's not particularly high quality. Here's another unusual Italian car, the Nardi, Italy, Torino, Italy. The model is the ND750 Deluxe Coupe. Four-cylinder Fiat engine, 45 cubic inch, 45 horsepower. I have a nifty little car. Another German make, NSU. They had a a Prince 1 and a Prince 2. Here's a sample of the Sport Prince saloon car. 2-cylinder, 583cc, 30 horsepower. And here we're back to an American car again. The Oldsmobile. As I mentioned in the previous video, part 1, this is an example of those divisions where there were just too many similar competing cars, and they consolidated and got rid of the Oldsmobile division a number of years ago. In 1897, Ransom Olds began producing a single-cylinder machine with tiller steering and continued to do so for 10 years. In 1905, a 2-cylinder car was marketed, and a year later production began on a 4-cylinder model which developed 26 to 28 horsepower. And over the years, like with General Motors and some of the others as well, these cars just all started to be the same car with slightly different badging, so there was less bespoke aspect to these brands. So in this year, the Oldsmobile models were the Dynamic 88, the Super 88, and the 98. So here's the Dynamic 88 Holiday Sport Sedan. Big, wide car. And here's the Super 88 Holiday Scenic Coupe. You can get a sense of the fins on that car. Again, big, wide. And there's the Super 88 Fiesta, the station wagon. V8. 394 cubic inches. That makes more sense. 315 horsepower. Here's a German car, the Opel. The models at this time were Olympia Record, the Capitan, and the Capitan L Saloon. So here's the Record. It's a 1.5 liter, 51 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine. Here's the Capitan Saloon, 6-cylinder, 150 cubic inch, 95 horsepower. And that's the Caravan station wagon model. Here's the Panhard, France. The Dyna Z16 is the only model of that year of Panhard. So, you can see that car. Interesting little design. 2-cylinder, 850cc, 42 horsepower. And here we're back to another British car. Peerless of Great Britain. The model is the GT 2-liter saloon. So that's this car. It has a 4-cylinder Triumph engine, 1.9 or basically 2-liter, 100 horsepower. Wow. Here's a brand was pretty well known, Peugeot. It's a very popular car in Europe. The model 203, 403 in various formats. Here's the 203 Deluxe Saloon. It's a 4-cylinder, 1290cc, 45 horsepower. Here's the 403 Deluxe Saloon. That one's got a 4-cylinder, 1.5 liter with 58 horsepower. And the Peugeot 403 Deluxe Cabriolet got the same engine. American car, the Plymouth, division of Chrysler Corp. The history of the Plymouth began with the Maxwell cars in 1904. In 1923, the Maxwell Company was bought by the Chrysler Corporation, of which Plymouth is now a subsidiary. So they had quite a few models in '59. The Savoy 6, the Savoy V8, Belvedere 6, Belvedere V8, the Fury, and the Sport Fury. And here's an example of the Plymouth Fury Sport Coupe. It's a big two-door car with those 1959 fins, a 318 V8, or an optional 361 V8, 230 or 305 horsepower. Here's a Sport Fury Sport Coupe. Not a bad looking car. And here's that station wagon. The Suburban station wagon. Plymouth Sport Suburban. The Chrysler cars of that era were known with their big engines. And here's Pontiac, another example of those divisions that get squished out when they do consolidation. The Pontiac models went away a few years ago. In 1908, the company became a division of General Motors and adopted the name Pontiac in 1932. So the models at this time were the Catalina, the Star Chief series, and the Bonneville series. So here we have the Catalina, which is sort of the entry-level Pontiac of the day. It's got that 389 big block, 245, or you could do various options to get it all the way up to 345 horsepower. And then this next one I'll show is the Pontiac Star Chief four-door sedan. It's this guy. Pretty similar car. And here's the Bonneville convertible coupe. Same 389 V8. That's a pretty cool car. As you can see, it's quite a monster. Does it show the length? Yeah, 18 feet, 4 7/10 inches. It's quite a monster. Here we go with another classic. This is Germany, the Porsche. Speaking of Porsche, you can see this little guy over here. The Evolution. So at this time, we had the classic 356A, the 356A Super, the GS, Carrera, and Type 718 Spider. And they brought that 718 number back a few years ago. So there's the classic. I mean, for a lot of people, this is the only Porsche. The 356A. 4 cylinders, 1600 cc, and 60 horsepower. It's a 100-mile-an-hour car. Absolute classic. And this one is the super convertible D. That's this guy. And here's the Type 718 Spider Sports Racing 2-seater. Could go up to 150 horsepower. Doesn't talk about the top speed. Those are quite valuable cars. You can find one. So this is the first Japanese car in the book, which, you know, the difference between this 60 some odd years ago and today, where Japanese cars were very obscure at this time. Now they dominate a book like this. This is the Prince from Japan. It looks like the models are the A-Seal and the A-Seal D. So here's a Prince A-Seal D Deluxe saloon car. Number of cylinders, 4. That's a 4-cylinder, 1.5 liter, 60 horsepower. And here's the Princess of Great Britain. So we have the Prince from Japan and the Princess from Great Britain. And the Princess models were the Princess 4, which came in saloon, touring, and limousine, or saloon and touring limousine, I should say, and a long wheelbase version. And here's the Prince 4 saloon. Here's a car maker a lot of people may not know about. Rambler. It's an American, Detroit, Michigan, American car. And their models at this time were the American, the Rambler American, the 6 Deluxe, the 6 Custom, the Rebel V8 Super, the Rebel V8 Custom, Ambassador Super, Ambassador Custom, and the Metropolitan. So this is the Rambler American 2-door sedan. It's a 6-cylinder, 90 horsepower. And here's the Rambler Rebel custom sedan. That one had a V8, 250 cubic inch, 215 horsepower. And here's the Rambler Ambassador custom hardtop station wagon. Had a V8, 327 V8, 270 horsepower. It's a classic Rambler look for anybody that follows Rambler. Here's another common European car, the Renault, France. At this time we had the 4CV, the Dauphine Gordini, the Dauphinese, I'm not pronouncing any of those right, the Floride, Frigate, Manoir, Domain. So I don't know my Renault super well. So I'm probably getting all those pronunciations wrong. And here's the 4CV. That's what that little Renault 4CV looks like, another popular European car. And here's the Dauphine saloon car. And this last one is the Frigate. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. And here's another British brand, Riley from Great Britain. They have the 1.5 and the 2.6 saloon cars. Here's the 1.5 and there's the 2.6. 6-cylinder, 2.6 liter, 100 horsepower. Pretty good size by UK standards. And here we get to the Rolls-Royce, another British car out of London, England. Although the Rolls-Royce company was not registered until 1906, Frederick Henry Royce met the Honorable Charles Stuart Rolls 2 years earlier. Together they were for some years to produce cars which have been known all over the world for their supreme quality. But the partnership was unfortunately cut short by the untimely and tragic death of Rolls in 1910. Current models at this time were the Silver Cloud and the Silver Wraith. So here's that classic Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud standard saloon. 6-cylinder, 4.9 liter engine. Doesn't say the horsepower. Still as big as that car was. It was a little bit shorter than some of those big American cars we showed earlier. This car is 17 inches. Sorry, 17 feet 7 3/4 inches. Still a big car, especially by European standards, but still a little bit smaller than those huge American cars at the time. Here's a drop head coupe. Now, isn't that gorgeous? And here's the Silver Wraith touring limousine. And here's the Silver Wraith Hooper limousine. And again, that's a car you'd expect the Queen to be riding around in or something. Another English make, the Rover. The Rover company's history goes back to 1877 when J.K. Starley and W. Sutton began building penny farthing bicycles in Coventry. The original company being founded in 1896 as the Rover Cycle Company. The current Rover models at this time: 75, 90, 105. Looks like a 30, or is that a 60? I guess some ink is missing. The 60, 75, 90, and 105 saloons. I guess they all looked similar. So it puts them all in the same photo. Here's the Rover 3-liter. And here's the classic Land Rover Series 2 utility. It's a 4-cylinder, either petrol or diesel. 2-liter petrol or a little bit over that in diesel. 52 horsepower. Here's a Saab out of Sweden. I think that's our first Swedish car we've seen yet. This time the models were the 93B and the GT 750. They don't show a picture of the GT. And this is the 93B saloon car. The old Saab story. Here's a Isetta out of Italy. They have a model 600 and a model 1200. Oh, and a Caracas. Here's the 600 Spider. Isetta out of Italy. There's Singer out of Great Britain. They have a Gazelle in saloon convertible and a state car. And here's the Gazelle Saloon. 4-cylinder, 1500 cc, 60 horsepower. And here's the Gazelle convertible, the Singer Gazelle convertible. And there's the estate car, which I guess is their way they say station wagon. So that's the Gazelle estate car. Here's one from Czechoslovakia, the Skoda. The models are the 440, the 445, the 450, and the 1201. And here is a 440 two-door saloon, Skoda, out of Czechoslovakia. Another British make, Standard. They have the 8, the 10, the Pennant, the Ensign, and the Vanguard. And here's the Standard 8 and 10 saloons. That's what those cars look like. And here's the Pennant saloon. That one's a 4-cylinder 948cc, 37 horsepower. Here's the Ensign. Looks like each of those models gets just a little bigger. The Ensign has a 1670cc engine, 60 horsepower. And here's the Vanguard Vignale saloon car. It's a 4-cylinder, 2.1 liter, 68 horsepower. And there's their estate car, Standard Vanguard estate car. Or as we call them, station wagons. So here's another maker that doesn't exist anymore, Studebaker. Though the Studebaker brothers began to make petrol-driven cars in 1904, the firm had been producing horse-drawn vehicles of quality since the middle of the previous century. There's those classic Studebaker looks. At this time, in 59, they had a Lark Deluxe, a Lark Regal, and a Silverhawk. So here's the Lark Deluxe two-door, classic Studebaker look. And these have become somewhat popular to restore nowadays. Here's the Studebaker Lark Royal two-door hardtop. And the Studebaker Silverhawk Sports Coupe. What is that? American fins. That one has a 6-cylinder or a V8. Either 90 or 180 or possibly 195 horsepower with the right options in the V8. There's their station wagon. There's another British make, Sunbeam. Although in 1938 the name Sunbeam Talbot appeared on cars under the control of the Rootes Group, actually the Sunbeam Motor Car Company and Clement Talbot Limited, acquired in 1935, had been producing passenger vehicles for some considerable time. So the Rapier was the only Sunbeam model at this time. And there's the Rapier hardtop. And here's the Rapier convertible. Here's the Talbot France. Logo America is the model. Lago America. It's a V8, 2.4 liter, 95 horsepower. That's a pretty cool car. And here's a Tatra from Czechoslovakia. Model 603, 4-door saloon. 3 headlight configuration. Very rounded. Got an air-cooled V8, 2.5 liter, 100 horsepower. And here's another Japanese car, the Toyota in Japan. At this time they had a Corona. Interesting, they were all called the Toyo Pet. The Corona, the Crown Deluxe, and RS21. So here's the Toyo Pet Corona ST10 sedan. I suppose if you're a Toyota collector, these would be pretty interesting cars. Here's the Toyo Pet Crown Deluxe RS21 sedan and the Toyo Pet Crown RS20 sedan. Another British classic, the Triumph. One of the old established companies which traces its origin to the cycle business, having been established in Coventry in 1885. In the pre-last war days, this company was famous for its high-quality small and medium-sized cars with stylish coachwork and better than ever finish. They achieved great success in British court elegance. So, this in 59, it was a TR3. It's a bit dated by this time, technology-wise, but obviously a very popular car. Had a 2-liter 4-cylinder with 100 horsepower, and went 110 miles an hour. It's another British car, the Turner. The models are the 950 and the 1100, and here's the 950 Sports. Kind of a classic English sports car look. And here's the Unicar from Great Britain. The current models are the Model T and the Sterling. So here's the Unicar Sterling Family Speed Saloon. It's a 2-cylinder, 424cc with 25 horsepower. There's Vauxhall, another Great Britain car, another British car from Great Britain. This company takes its name from the Vauxhall Ironworks, which was making marine engines in London in 1857. The current models at this time were the Victor, the Velox, and the Cressla. So here's the Vauxhall Victor Super Saloon. Here's the Vauxhall Velox and Cresta saloons. I guess they look similar. They only show one picture. Here's a French vehicle make, the Vedette. The models were the Presidence, the Beaulieu, the Chambord, and the Marley. And there's the Beaulieu Saloon, the Vedette Beaulieu. It's a V8, 2.4 liter V8, 84 horsepower. The Vedette Chambord Saloon. This guy kind of has the American style fins on that one. And here's the station wagon. Looks like they all have the same engine, that little 2.4 liter V8. Here's another well-recognized brand, Volkswagen from Germany. The current models at this time were the standard saloon, the deluxe saloon with sunroof, the convertible, and the Carmen Ghia coupe and convertible. So there's the standard VW Deluxe. We know them sometimes as the Bug. It's a 4-cylinder, 1200cc with 36 horsepower. By this time, the rear window had started to get a little bit bigger. And here's the Carmen Ghia coupe. It's a very popular car these days. And here's the Carmen Ghia convertible. So we could go off for a long time talking about a lot of info about VWs, but we won't go too much into it. But that was a little air-cooled rear-engine car. And the Carmen Ghia was a body designed by Ghia, constructed by Carmen, over the same VW chassis. Here's the Volga from USSR, and they had an M21 four-door saloon, which is shown in this picture. It's a 4-cylinder, 2.4 liter, and 80 horsepower. And here's another Swedish brand, the Volvo. This time the models were the PV544, the 122S, and the P445 utility. So here's an example of that PV544 saloon. Looks a little bit like a 40 Ford if you ask me, but these are quite popular, very cool cars. 4-cylinder, 97 cubic inch, so about 1600 cc's, and either 60 or 85 horsepower. So I guess they had a souped up one with 85 horsepower. That's pretty good for 1959 out of a little 97 cubic inch engine. And here's the 122S saloon. Here we've got the Wartburg from Germany. Various limousines. Sports convertible. Here's the Limousine Deluxe. 3-cylinder, 900cc, 17 horsepower. Here's the Sports convertible with 3 cylinders, 900cc, and 50 horsepower. Oh, almost wrapping up here. Here's the Willies brand from the United States. Willies was preceded by the Overland, which appeared in 1902 with a single-cylinder 5-horsepower engine. In 1905, the first engines with 2 and 4 cylinders were produced, and in 1906, a 6-cylinder model was offered. From 1914 to 1932, the Willies Knight was manufactured firstly as a 4 and then as a 6. So the models at that time were the CJ3B, the CJ5, and the CJ6 Jeeps. So there's the Willies CJ5 Jeep of that era, which if you're into Jeeps you can see sometimes that's called a short fender 5. There's no, what's the shorter wheelbase earlier CJ5 had a 4-cylinder 134 cubic inch engine with 75 horsepower. That's the classic CJ5 Jeep. I didn't know you could still get a CJ3B as late as 1959. They don't show a picture of that. And here's the Wolsey from Great Britain. You can see we have some water damage on this part of the book. And here's the Wolsey 1500 Saloon. And there's the Wolsey 15/60 Saloon up here. And here's the 690 Series 3 Saloon. It's a larger car. We must be close to the end. We're now at the Gill, from the USSR. That car looks like it's flying in that photo. So the models are the 111 and the 112. So here's a Gill 111 limousine. Had a V8. 5.9, basically 6 liters and 220 horsepower. And here's the Zundap from Germany. This is our last car in the book. And this one was always funny to me as a kid because the car looks the same going forwards or backwards. So this is out of Zundap, out of Germany. The model is the Janus 250. The Zundap Janus 250 Saloon. It has 1 cylinder, 248 cc, and 14 horsepower. Weighs 411 kilograms, so 900 pounds or so. Maybe a little more than that. So that wraps up our Observer's Guide to Automobiles. Talks about number plates around the world. So again, this is the Observer's Book of Automobiles for 1959. That's the 5th edition. So I hope you found this relaxing. And thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.